All right, let's dive into a true classic today. The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Al Ries and Jack Trout. This book is legendary for a reason. The core idea is that marketing isn't just guesswork. There are fundamental rules, almost like laws of physics. You can try to ignore them, but you do it at your own peril.
And the stakes are incredibly high. The authors start out with this zinger. Billions of dollars have been wasted on marketing programs that couldn't possibly work. And they're not talking about small startups. They mean giants, companies with the biggest budgets and the smartest people in the room who still managed to light cash on fire because they were working with the wrong assumptions. So that really begs the question, right? Why does this happen over and over again? If it's not about having more money or more creativity or more brain power, what is it? Well, according to Ries and Trout, it's all about understanding a few key, unchangeable laws. So the first and maybe the most critical concept to get your head around is where the marketing battle is actually fought. Spoiler alert, it's not on a store shelf and it's not in a lab. It's somewhere much more important. This is the law of perception. Marketing is not a battle of products. It's a battle of perceptions. What this means is there is no objective reality. There's no best product. The only thing that matters is what your customer believes to be true. I mean, remember New Coke? Taste tests said it was better, but in the customer's mind, Coca-Cola Classic was the real Coke, and that perception absolutely crushed the better product.
The Honda paradox is a perfect example of this. In the US, you hear Honda, you think car. You think of the Accord, the Civic. They're a leader. But back home in Japan, the perception is totally different. Honda is, first and foremost, a motorcycle company. So what happens? In the Japanese car market, they're not a leader. They're a distant third. Same company, same great products, completely different perception, completely different result. Okay, so if it's all about perception, how in the world do you win that battle for the mind? Well, this next set of laws gives us the strategy. And it starts with a simple, almost brutally direct idea. This is the law of leadership. Put simply, it's way easier to get into someone's mind first than it is to convince them that you're better than what's already there. The leading brand in pretty much any category you can think of, Hertz in rental cars, Coca-Cola in cola, is almost always the first one that staked its claim in our minds. Let me give you a quick pop quiz to show you what I mean. Who was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean? Charles Lindbergh, of course. We all know that name, right? It's practically burned into our brains. Okay, but what about part 2 of the quiz? Who was the second person to do it? Yeah, suddenly a lot tougher, isn't it? His name was Burt Hinkler. And here's the crazy part. You could argue he was a better pilot. He flew faster, he used less fuel, but it doesn't matter. He wasn't first, so he's just a footnote in a history book. Being second, even a better second, makes you almost invisible. But there's a really important little twist here, and it's called the law of the mind. It's not just about being the first company to build a product. I mean, IBM wasn't first with the mainframe computer. Some other company was, but IBM, through a massive marketing push, got into the mind first, and that's how they won the computer war. Okay, so I can hear you thinking, that's great, but what if I'm not first? Am I just doomed? No, not at all. And that brings us to the playbook for the challengers. This is the law of the ladder. You have to realize that in your customer's mind, there's a little mental ladder for every category of product. And your strategy has to be honest about which rung you're on. You can't just act like you're number 1 if you're really number 2 or 3. The classic case study here is Avis. For years, they were losing money, running ads about being the finest in car rentals. But everyone knew Hertz was number 1. So they finally changed their strategy. They embraced being number 2. Their campaign? Avis is only number 2. We try harder. By admitting their position, they turned it into a strength, and they finally became profitable. And the way to do that is by using the law of the opposite. If you're shooting for that number 2 spot, your strategy is dictated by whoever is number 1. You don't try to be better than them. You have to be different. You have to position yourself as the alternative. You've seen this play out your whole life in the cola wars. Coke owned the original, the classic. They were the establishment. So what did Pepsi do? They became the opposite. They became the choice of a new generation. They were the un-Coke. And by doing that, they captured this huge market of young people who didn't want what their parents drank. And what you see happen over time is this fascinating thing called the law of duality. When a category is new, there might be tons of competitors. But as the market matures, it almost always settles into a 2-horse race.
It's the old, trusted leader versus the up-and-coming challenger. The numbers don't lie. Look at the U.S. cola market. You have Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola way up at the top, just dominating the whole thing. And then you have everybody else just fighting for the tiny little scraps left over. In a mature market, being number 3 is a really, really tough place to be.
All right, let's move into our final section, and this is where it all comes together. This one is all about discipline, and it's a powerful idea that runs completely counter to how most businesses think they should operate.
It's called the law of sacrifice. To succeed, you have to give something up. This sounds crazy, right? We're all taught to want a bigger market, a longer product line, a wider appeal. But Reese and Trout argue that real strength comes from narrowing your focus, not broadening it. And this sacrifice is what leads to the law of focus. They say the single most powerful thing you can do in marketing is to own one word in the prospect's mind. Not some complicated, made-up buzzword, but a simple word, a word you could find in the dictionary. Think about these brands. They are absolute masters of this. You hear safety, you think Volvo. You hear overnight, you think FedEx, cavities, Crest, home delivery, Domino's. Each one of them gave up being known for 100 different things so they could become the undisputed king of one thing in our minds. So as we wrap up, the big takeaway here is that success in marketing isn't random. There are laws, and the most powerful of these laws often require real focus and, sacrifice. It's not about doing more. It's about owning a very clear, very specific piece of your customer's mind. So that leaves us with a pretty important question to ask ourselves. To get what you really want, what are you willing to give up?